Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming and joining us for this discussion tonight with Sean Scully and Deborah Solomon. We're very pleased to present our first exhibition with Sean, Pan, which you're sitting in now, and which extends to our space down at 10th Avenue. I'm going to let Sean and Deborah speak more about the exhibition, but I'll give you some brief descriptions of them first. Sean Scully really needs no introduction. You're all here because he's one of the most important painters of his generation, and his work is held in significant museum collections from around the world. He has twice been shortlisted for the Turner Prize, and in 2014, he became the only Western artist to have had a career-length traveling retrospective in China. This year alone, he has been the subject of solo exhibitions at the Wadsworth Atheneum in Hartford, Connecticut, the National Gallery of Art in London, Villa Panza in Varese, Italy, the LWL Museum for Art and Culture in Munster, Germany, and just last week he opened a major exhibition at the Basilica San Giorgio Maggiore for the Venice Biennale. Next week, an exhibition of his watercolors opens in Guadalajara, and on the 7th of June, Eleuthera opens at the Albertina in Vienna. Deborah Solomon is a nationally recognized art critic and biographer. She is currently the art critic for WNYC Radio, the NPR affiliate in New York City. She's also at work on a full-scale biography of Jasper Johns. Deborah's written for many publications, and her weekly interview column, Questions For, appeared in the New York Times Magazine until 2011. Her books include Jackson Pollock, a biography, Utopia Parkway, The Life and Work of Joseph Cornell, and American Mirror, The Life and Art of Norman Rockwell. In 2001, Deborah was awarded a grant from the John Simon Guggenheim Memorial Foundation in the field of biography. I'm going to let them speak now, and at the end, we'll have time for some questions. Over to you guys.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. Sean, can you hear me, first of all? Too well, probably, too well. I wanted to start by saying that, that the Whitney Biennial opens tomorrow. And I went to see it, to review it, on the radio tomorrow morning. And Sean, there are 75 artists, many of whom show 5 or 6 works, and there's not one abstract painting in the entire show. I found that quite incredible. And I know that's not your problem. You know, you do your work. You don't have to worry about the fate of abstract painting. You're worried about the fate of your own paintings and sustaining your own creativity. But does that surprise you to hear that there were no abstract paintings in the Biennial, which supposedly is a survey of American art at the moment?
No.
Because?
Because, good prompt. Because I think that since the fall of modernism, agreed upon principles and the idea of utopia, and subsequently the attempt to include all the various peoples that have been excluded from the party, which has been a white guy's party, then you're going to get all kinds of expression, and everything's being put on the table again. No, sorry, delete again.
Yeah.
That was a typo.
Right, right.
Everything's been put on the table actually for the first time. Of course, it already existed, but it wasn't visible before. You know, famous cases like women being great at literature because they could put it under the bed, just like the Irish.
What do the Irish do?
Put their writing under the bed.
Under the bed.
But you can't put that under the bed.
No.
That's the problem.
No.
So for that, you need to be in a country that can support it. But anyway, I'm not surprised, and I think it's pretty good.
You think it's okay?
I do, yeah.
But at the same time, by the way, the mediums that dominate the biennial are assemblage, which I found surprising, assemblage, but with a very political theme and content, photography, of course, and figure painting. So, but at the same time, I know that you feel that your paintings are very contemporary. They're not just part of some romantic, abstract past. They spring from that. They spring from early abstraction. And I know how much you love Mondrian and many other purely abstract artists, but you do see don't you see your pictures as very contemporary? I know I do.
Yeah, I'm quite plugged in.
And you're making them now.
And I'm very concerned with where we live and making efforts to ensure that we have somewhere to live in half a century. So one thing that did occur to me about my own work is that the change in my work, where it became less architectonic and more concerned with nature, has got something to do with that issue. I'm preoccupied by it a lot. I give a lot of money away to, you know, this and that and that and this.
Right, right.
And which I'm happy to do. Because if we don't have anywhere to live, it won't matter what's in the Whitney Biennial, will it? Because we won't have a Whitney Biennial.
Right, right. I do see, it's true, a very strong landscape impulse in the works that are here. Is that okay to say?
Yeah, I'm not defending abstraction. Abstraction doesn't need me.
Right.
It's already been invented.
Yeah.
Back in, in Russia.
And the goal, anyway, is not to keep abstraction alive. It's to keep art alive.
Yeah, I think
vital.
Art is very, very important. When I was in China, this guy comes up to me and says, what about art market? I said, what about arms market? It's a human need to throw money around. So it's better that we throw money at art than in weapons. I mean, we don't actually kill anybody. We don't harm anybody. We're trying to make...
You're talking about artists now.
Artists. I'm not talking about other people around the art world. But we don't intend to harm anybody, and we're trying to show something. I'm always trying to show something that whether it's been shown or not before, I don't know. But I'm not attempting to do something consciously that hasn't been shown before. But I mean, that's not a thrust of my work. But I try to show something all the time. And if people show things in different ways, all that should be allowed, and all these different positions should be respected. And that's a great thing, and it's a great it's a counterweight. Art which should breed tolerance is a massive counterweight to the extreme right, which breeds intolerance and shuts things down. So anything that opens it up and keeps it open and keeps it some way wild is great, because we have to be free in some way.
And because art is not language-based, as you well know, you could put a painting up in any country, and people who might have nothing in common can immediately connect to a work. That must be very gratifying when you travel.
Well, that's one of the reasons that I show in as far-flung places as I do, because I think that the idea of breaking the world up anyway, which is a derivation of tribalism, is worked against us terribly. So we're all working against each other. We're all economically at war. If we're not literally at war, we're not dropping bombs on each other. We are making war economically, which is destroying our home. So I think art is a force for good. It's whether it's successful or not, I don't know. But I always follow Ernest Hemingway's beautiful credo, which is the world is worth fighting for. And that's really something I remember all the time. It's worth fighting for, or as Don Cuspit once said to me, the effort itself is its own reward, which is very beautiful.
Of course. Well, I always feel like your work to me has a very contemporary feeling, and it's different than the heroic abstraction of the 50s. It always seems much more down to earth or earthbound to me, whether we're talking about the early work, which felt rooted in the city and urban life and had all the grays of urban life and sidewalks and buildings, or the more recent work. I think it seems free to me of the grandiosity that we often associate with American abstraction.
Like Heroicus Sublimis.
Yeah, exactly, Heroicus Sublimis. You're not Heroicus or Sublimis, isn't that
No,
true?
neither. So I paint very direct and very physical and kind of rough. And that's been true since I made my break with minimalism. You know, when I was making my pinstripe paintings, and then one day I decided I couldn't do that anymore because I thought it had lost its ability to communicate to people. I'm always concerned with that. I'm always concerned with trying to bring people into art. That's why I've taught as much as I have, why I'm willing to give lectures in odd places.
Yeah, no, you have brought a lot of people in, and at the same time, abstract painting is Mandarin. It's difficult. Do you think your paintings are difficult?
Well, of course, that's the problem. One of the greatest artworks I've seen for a while was at the Tate. And it's the Tower of Babel. And it's obviously owes something to Nam June Paik. I don't know who the artist is, I forgot. But it's all these TV sets and radio sets, and they're in a big tower, and they're all talking at once. And of course, what you end up with is nonsense. And with abstraction, I suppose what you start out with is nonsense. Or you start out with something that's opaque, something that can't be penetrated, because people want a painting to describe something. But then, once you get into description, you've sort of lost the universality. Which, of course, brings me right up to figurative paintings I made. But they're a personal pit stop.
You're not, you don't believe in your figurative paintings to the same degree you believe in your abstract paintings?
Well, I believe in them.
But why do you're going to go back to abstract? You never stopped painting abstract paintings.
I'm not going to dump abstraction for figuration.
Because you feel like it's your natural language?
Yeah, it's my natural language. I like it. And it tends to be able to travel, you know, and then, of course, it touches on issues of spirituality in people.
But I just wanted to say, when you were talking about the Tower of Babel, that the thing about abstract painting is it doesn't lend itself to one-sentence summations. I was thinking of this going through the Whitney Biennial, that all these works could be described in one sentence. And the museum does that in the wall labels. And usually the sentence is that, I'm serious, that the work is a criticism of white supremacy. They say that. It's amazing. About every other painting. That's what it says in the label. That the work is a critique of white suprematism or supremacy. And you can't, with abstract painting, you can't really put it into words. I mean, I don't think you could see your work as a critique of white supremacy. Do you?
I don't know. You know, I'm good at making things up.
Well, but that's a bit of a stretch, isn't it?
I think it's a critique of orange supremacy.
Yeah. Is orange a hard color to use?
Yeah,
apparently.
Yeah. I've never found it so myself, but I've heard it is.
Yeah, people always say you can't sell green paintings, but I love green paintings. I mean, the green in this, and the green against the pink, wow.
Well, here's an interesting thing. When I lived in Manhattan full time, which I did for a very long time, I think I lived in Manhattan for 37 years. And I made paintings that were very much about the city, the way things were banged together. I used a lot of gray. And I remember Irving, our dear friend Irving.
Irving Sandler,
the
recently departed Irving Sandler.
Who we both loved. He once said to me, "Oh yeah, green, a color you never use." And of course, I didn't use it because Manhattan is full of all these wonderful gray colors. And I pulled all the color out of gray living there. And I, of course, made walls because the walls were all filled in, like all the spaces in the city. I was painting cityscapes, really. Mm-hmm. And when I moved out of the city, I started making green paintings.
Oh, really? When you moved to?
Tappan.
In New York, really?
Where George Washington pursued the War of Independence and trapped a naughty British fleet on the River Hudson by submerging his own.
So soon you'll be making paintings about George Washington. Soon you'll be, it sounds like.
Well, George Washington Museum is 150 meters from the studio.
I see it coming. The next the George series.
So, George.
Do you want to talk about, I mean, looking at these, we have a PowerPoint, but that seems silly to look at when we have so many beautiful paintings in the room. And the PowerPoint just has the paintings that are in the gallery anyway,
Oh, this I want
it?
to talk about, which
Yeah,
I'm very fond of.
Which one are you pointing to?
The one on the screen, the
On the
little
screen?
sculpture.
You want to talk about something on the screen when we have all this
Can I?
beautiful work? Why not
Please.
talk about this piece where everybody can see
Miss,
it?
can I miss, please?
Okay, the one
That's
on
what I do now, because I take my son to school all the time. So I say, please, miss. So
Okay.
This friend of mine said, I really like it. He's a farmer, by the way, because he speaks like a farmer. He said, I really like it because it's got a hole in it, so you can see what's inside. Isn't that great?
Yeah, but we can't really see it from
And
here.
it's too small. That's the other thing I like about it. It's a bit comic.
Yeah, we can't see it from here. Like, what about this piece over here?
Oh, yeah, okay.
What is that called? Can everybody see it? Isn't that more
It's a
satisfying?
stack.
A stack, okay. And those also came from later in your career. You
Yeah.
didn't do those in the city,
Well,
did you?
I did those. No, I started to make sculpture when I got a studio outside,
Yeah.
because I had land. So if you give me a space, I'll fill it in. And I started to fill it in with sculptures. And those are frames.
Oh.
And I like the idea of frames, almost like picture frames that are not filled in, that makes a space inside that you know about that you can't see. So it's very, on one hand, very flat-footed, but on the other hand, it should have inside it a sense of mystery.
So how come you don't put a hole in that one like you did in this one so we could see inside and your farmer friend would be happy?
So I have something to talk about. Because that one is nothing to talk about, because I drilled a hole through it, so there it is.
Yeah. Well,
Doesn't need any explanation.
is that Corten steel or?
It's Corten steel.
Yeah.
And in the in the countryside, I really like it because, you know, I imagine that it's a little haven for wildlife, for the little creatures, because the hawks can't dive bomb vertically. They dive at an angle, you know, and they circle all day like this.
But what little creatures could get in there?
Mice,
They can get in?
I'm sure.
That's horrifying. It's a house for mice. It's like
No, I'm sure they go underneath and
mouse?
they have little
parties.
tea parties and little, you know, little mice biennials. You know, little straw things that they make.
Yeah.
And I made a lot of these, and I made some colored. I did one called 30, with all 30 different colors. So again, you know, what I basically do is I use the language that I used when I was making minimal work, but I use it intuitively. I mess it up, basically. So I try to avoid system and measurement. And it's interesting to me, on a personal note, that the artist that I've shown most with is Sol LeWitt. And I think that's very interesting.
Because you're like a post-minimalist.
Yeah, and he's a post me, whatever that
He's
is.
post.
Well, he's post me and I'm post him,
Oh,
sort of thing.
now wait a second.
Not opposed.
You're
No.
not saying opposed. You're
No,
saying post, like
I'm
a post-it
talking,
note.
well, we're kind of polar opposites, but using the same material, visual material.
Well, he was a lot older than you,
Yeah.
wasn't he?
Yeah, he
What
was.
year was Sol LeWitt born? Does anybody know? We'll
I
find
think
out.
he's-
I think he was born at least 10 years
Oh,
or
yeah.
more before you.
Yeah, he was. I met him.
Yeah,
He came to my studio.
yeah, very nice man.
He
Everyone
was.
liked him.
Yeah, he was very nice.
He had a very large collection of work by other artists that was recently shown at the Drawing Center, and he supported so many artists.
Well, I was hoping he'd buy one of mine, but he didn't.
Sol LeWitt. Okay, so you came up after him. I think
Yeah.
of your work as, oh, so he's so much older than you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he's much older than
Much.
me. Yeah. No, but no, what I'm
I
saying
mean, in
is
your
that...
work, I see you as a post-minimalist. Hey, he's concerned with measurement
Yes.
and even the idea of art, having someone else do the wall drawing. He's very comfortable with having other people do the drawing on the wall, right?
Yes.
Whereas you're really about the hand
Yeah, I make them all myself.
and touch.
Yeah.
And I'm always amazed that you were able to make the checkerboard and the stripe your own. You know, how many, if we tried ourselves to paint a checkerboard, how many of us could paint a checkerboard that looked like our own, as opposed to just a generic checkerboard or a generic stripe, Sean? And to take possession of those forms, which are so universal, I think requires an incredible sense of touch.
Well, I like things that are emptied out.
emptied out. But I was going to say Saul LeWitt. You wouldn't say he doesn't have that touch.
No, he was a
Conceptual artist.
yeah. He's a I don't want to say thinker because I'm also a thinker.
Yeah.
But yeah, he has to have a system and he accepts the consequence of it. But I do think it's very interesting that we always in these shows.
Oh.
You know, that,
Yeah.
I mean, if you were to guess who the artist
Oh, you're
that
saying
you've
because
shown-
people think of you as being a minimalist?
No, they
No.
think of me as the opposite.
Oh,
And-
okay.
And so, out of the same empty material or neutral material, you get such a dramatically different result. And it stands for something else.
Right.
And it actually stands probably for the opposite.
I see. You're saying out of geometry, out
Yeah.
of geometric forms, you and Saul LeWitt get very different results.
Yeah, mine is always about bringing it into the living body, the human body, human touch. I feel that's very important in art.
Well, can we talk about this painting since everybody can see it and it's such a radiant work?
Maybe I can reflect it in my like 007.
What's the title of this one?
It's Shutter.
Shadow.
Shutter.
Shutter.
Shutter. You know, like the
Yeah, like a shutters on a house.
yeah,
Or
or the roll gates in New York.
Yeah. A shutter also means close, and that's not what you mean, I know.
But I just thought they were interesting as sections. I mean, you can see it in different ways. I mean, there's a lot of glimpsing. There's a lot of reference to movement, like travel, car travel, train travel. You know, when you see things flashing
things out of the
past like
corner of
this.
your eye.
And I like this contrast between the speed of a brushstroke and the way that it's sliced, the way that they're then banged together, which is very unsentimental. It's quite hard, aggressive.
Physical, very physical.
It disciplines the sense of poetry or romance or movement in the work. So in that sense, it has a relationship to my 80s paintings where things are sort of smashed together, you know?
But it also flows more easily. I mean, I love the way you blur the boundaries between colors.
I accept all those arbitrary relationships too.
So liquid. It's like watching color spill into water, or when you look at the edges and you see things blending and...
Well, there's also another difference with these, let's say, in relation to the small paintings. These are not built up. They're painted once. So the surface doesn't become elaborate. I wanted to do something that had a stronger relationship maybe with my watercolors or my prints. And painting on metal came from, I think, my prints.
This is painted on aluminum, right?
Yeah,
An aluminum
so
panel.
it
But
has-
it doesn't look like it was painted once because the colors are so dense. That's just one, that's not one layer. Is it?
Maybe the orange was painted again. You can see the edges are lighter, but most of the colors I try to get with one go.
And what about the sheen of the canvas? Is there anything on top of the paint?
I put varnish in the paint.
You put varnish in the paint. Oh.
Makes it active.
Oh, trade secret.
Oh, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, now everyone's going to be doing it.
That was a trick. You tricked me out
Varnish
of
in the paint, yeah. The sheen, I didn't know if the sheen was from the aluminum or if something went on top of it, but the sheen is quite incredible too, because they're such earthy paintings.
Yeah.
And yet,
I never liked paintings that were flat. I like a sense of activity on the surface.
well, but you just said these are flat, relatively flat.
Well, they're painted once, but I like the surface to be active.
Oh, I see, yeah.
But I didn't want to get into the layering of paint, which is something that I do habitually. I tried to get away from that with these. I got another one of these in my studio that's painted with the same attitude.
Very free.
Very, very direct. One shot, if I can do it. Bang.
So how come the stripes come out straight? Do you have pencil guides when you start? Do you have any lines drawn on the aluminum? Or
No.
you can intuitively, you can paint straight lines and straight stripes?
Well, I don't know how straight they are, but they look pretty drunk to me. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of movement in them. Also, if you would measure the spacing, spacing is quite uneven. I don't draw them out at all.
Yeah. They're all different thicknesses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I make them similar, but not the same.
Right, and in the blue and yellow panel, the yellow stripes are obviously thinner than the blue ones. So that seems hard to do without
They are.
without a ruler. No rulers?
No.
Different brushes, I guess.
No. I use the same brushes.
Okay.
I basically use house painting brushes, and my brushes last for about 3 years.
Really? A brush lasts for 3 years. And then
'Cause
what? And then
I don't clean them.
But you don't clean them ever?
No.
Is it? That's another trade secret.
Well,
No wonder your work is so distinctive.
I don't clean because I don't want to damage the environment. Because if you clean brushes and then you pour the stuff around, well, what are you going to do? It's got to go somewhere.
Well, yeah. So
So
you can't reuse the same turpentine, or?
I put them in brush cleaner, and they just stand there for their whole life until they give up the ghost.
Interesting.
And I spend very little on brushes. That's one of my best business decisions. They cost about $15.
Yeah.
And they last 3 years, certainly 3 years.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us the brand of brush, since we're this deep into it?
It's, I can't remember the name of it. They're Italian. They're box brushes, you know?
Yeah.
Because a flat brush is designed to flatten out the paint. A box brush is designed not to.
Interesting.
It's meant actually for painting with whatever they call it, lime paint, the way they paint houses in Italy, in the countryside. So those are the brushes I use. So that's why the paint stands up. It's not that complicated, really.
We didn't even talk about your figurative paintings. We are going all out of order today. We were so close to talking about your new figurative paintings. You said you were just kind of passing through. They're a passing through stage. But recently, you've been painting your son, Oisin, and your wife, Lillian. And I believe that's the two of them on the screen now.
Oh, yeah. That's the two of them, all right.
So what led you to try painting a figurative painting, and were you nervous about showing them?
I'm not really that nervous.
No?
If I think...
Well, you thought about it.
No, I think about this sometimes, and I think maybe there's something wrong with me, but once somebody said to, I think it was Lily or me, I don't know, but, Eve Ashheim said, you must be very excited about your Met show. I had a show at the Met.
I'm aware.
Oh, okay. And I didn't really know what to say because I wasn't that excited. And then she said, "No, you must be. But aren't you nervous?" And trying to make it, trying to make the conversation go. And then Lily, my lovely wife over there.
Hi, Lily.
Hello, Lily, lovely wife. She said, Sean doesn't get nervous. And I don't.
Well, that's probably something you've trained yourself to do after all these years.
I think maybe.
I mean, you've had enough shows now, so.
I started showing when I was 26.
Yeah.
I think I was nervous in the beginning. But then I forgot to be nervous because you can't keep being nervous.
Yeah.
Because after a while you just forget one day to be nervous.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then it's finished. But what I used to do when I first started painting, I used to paint figuratively in the expressionist style, basically. So when I had my little crisis, my little nervous breakdown with minimalism, it was really a very, very bad year for me, around 79, 80, when I lost faith with it.
Oh.
I wondered what to do, and so what I came up with, really, is that I would paint the way I painted my figurative paintings, but make my abstract paintings. I know it sounds a bit simplistic.
Or just incomprehensible. I mean, for us, but I know you.
Well, that's how I think about
yeah,
things.
Right.
I think about things in a very simple.
No, it's not simple. It's not simple to us. When you say you painted your abstract paintings the way you painted your figurative paintings, and this is something that's so complicated that it probably can't be explained. It doesn't sound simple. It sounds very hard to make that move.
I suppose, yeah. Well, it took me about a year to make these. I made transitional paintings. But when I started taking pictures of Oisin on the beach and then Lily and Oisin on the beach, we were in Eleuthera. And Eleuthera is a very particular place. It's an island in the Bahamas. There's wonderful, wonderful people, and we found our place, and they know we come every year. And it means freedom, by the way, Eleuthera. And it's where Jacques Cousteau, the great nature studier, ended his life because he thought it was the most beautiful place in the world. And it makes you think about nature because you see it, and you see the beach, you see what comes in off the water, you see the animals in the water. And I started making all these iPhone photos, but a photo is not a painting. And never can be a painting.
No, but you've always taken photographs, long before iPhones.
Yeah, I love taking photographs, but I don't think that they're paintings.
No.
Because a painting can be any size, any surface, have any edges, any color, and it seems to be infinite in the way that it keeps folding and unfolding itself.
And it takes time to do.
Yeah. That's interesting.
And the time is kind of woven into it, the passage of time, which you don't have in a photograph.
Exactly. And I started to make the paintings, and then, as you know, I put them all up for Oisin's birthday.
In your studio.
Yeah, which, you know, he didn't really notice, but anyway, whatever. And
Oh.
that was a trick.
That was really nice. He noticed.
So-
You could be sure he did notice.
So, no, he did notice.
He did
I
notice.
just said that so he would say he did notice. So,
He's going to interview you next time.
yes.
It's coming.
So then, as you very well know, my friend Andrea Bella came, and she wanted to show them because she liked them so much. Don't you remember? She said to you, "Oh, I'll curate them, and you can write about them." This was at Oisin's birthday party. And so then I thought, well, I'll show them. And so I'm going to show them.
And they're at a separate space owned by this gallery right around the corner. We're talking about the figurative paintings. How come you decided to put them in a separate space? Was that important, or was that just a matter of convenience?
I wanted to put them there.
Yeah. And what happened?
It's not my gallery. I just do what I'm told.
Yeah, exactly.
As you know, that's very much my way.
Yeah. But I have to quickly tell you one Oisin story. He's very observant, because the last time I saw him, it was right before his birthday, which is May 2nd, and he said to me, "Do you know I was born the same day as Leonardo?" And I said, "Oh, that's very interesting. I didn't know that was Leonardo's birthday." And then at the end of the evening, Oisin found me. He said, "I have to tell you something." He said, "I got that wrong. I was born on the day Leonardo died." And I thought, thank you for correcting that, because I thought it was incredible that he corrected that information. And I was so glad, because I'm sure I would have gotten it wrong in print or something. He's so careful.
What I love about that is the tenacity.
He's tenacious.
Well, the tenacity of that is, or the will involved.
But also the
is
will
very-
he wanted to get it right. He
Yeah.
didn't want to leave someone with misinformation.
Well, and he honors the truth.
Because everyone else leaves me with misinformation. So I was really impressed that
Well, now
he
we've-
understood the difference.
What about, since we've arrived at honoring the truth and misinformation,
Oh yeah, we have to discuss this. I want to get it on the record. Do you want to say it, or should I say it?
you say it.
I'll say it and then you'll say it.
Okay.
I'll say it and then you'll correct me, or whatever. Okay, so I was quite distressed to read in an article a week ago that Sean had compared himself to President Trump and said that I'm just like President Trump. I have that much chutzpah. And I assumed this article was written by a critic who I know, who was reviewing a new film about Sean that had appeared on the BBC, and I assumed that Sean was joking when he made the comment. I sent the article to my mother, because, I was concerned. And she said, "Oh, he's so funny." But other critics took it the wrong way, and there was a bit of a social media flurry about Sean's comment. And Sean doesn't follow this. This is my world now, not his at all. And so I asked him about it tonight. And I said, do you think you're like President Trump? I wanted to know, in case maybe he does. I thought we should talk about that, why he thinks that. Whether he was losing his marbles or something. So instead I learned that Sean never made that comment, and I'm very distressed because it was widely circulated on Twitter. I don't know if anybody saw it. You saw it, and he was really attacked for it. He was attacked, and I'm so upset. I didn't find out till tonight that that article misquoted him. One reason I didn't find out is I tried to watch the BBC documentary, and you can't watch it in New York. It says you have to be in London. So I was reading this article, and it really, it was completely, I mean, you don't care because you can't pay attention to what people say. You live, you know, you do your art, and the rest is just a lot of noise in the distance, I'm sure. But I'm very upset about it, and so I want to correct it on the record. Sean, do you want to tell us what you actually said? Now everybody, we're driving them out.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I detest the film.
You detest film, being interviewed, you mean?
No,
I know you love
the
movies.
film.
Oh, the film, right.
I detest the film.
What's the name of the show? Do you know what the name of the film is?
Unstoppable.
No. Sounds like a romantic novel. Unstoppable.
Yeah, Unstoppable.
That is funny.
So, first of all, let me just say this, that if someone makes a film on you, and someone made a film on Gerhard Richter,
Of course.
who's also somebody I know and like, and he hates it.
Oh, he hates that film?
He hates the film made on him, and I can commiserate with that because I hate the film made on me, but I figured out that the guy's motives were not to make a film on me that represents my life, which is taking my son to school, going back to the studio, hanging out with Lily and making art, and then going to the school and picking my son up and taking him home and playing and so on and doing homework. That's my life. But of course, that's not going to get him another gig. So he gets paid to make a film, but what he's thinking about is the next film. And what he said to me during the making of the film was, controversy makes fame. And that film has been seen by 6 million people.
I know. I keep reading about it. I'm dying to see it.
That's 10% of the UK.
It's horrifying.
I mean, it's staggering when you think about it.
But the comment you made in the film, you never said in the film that you're just like Trump.
No, what? We were in the American embassy. See, this is very important.
It's important to get this on film, to get this on the record, absolutely.
And there was a picture of Trump, who, of course, I absolutely detest. And I said to my friend, do you think I could be the left-wing art world alternative to Trump? Well, that's the opposite of saying
Yeah.
I'm the Donald Trump of the art world.
That's how
So-
you were quoted.
Then, if people build on that, what they're building on is a lie. But you know that I never read these things.
I know you don't.
So
I know.
actually don't care that much.
I know you don't, but I'm glad we corrected that because it was picked up, and some of you saw it. What did you think? You figured Sean was joking, right? It was just a throwaway joke, because we all know how funny he is. Oh, you saw the film? Oh. Oh, you found it inspiring, isn't it? Oh. How do you like that? He found the film inspiring.
Yeah, a lot of people liked it, but I didn't like it. Because, no.
No, that's true.
Except,
No.
no, I don't like the way I speak, because I think I sound like a South London gangster. And yeah. Somewhat, yes. Yeah. No, I'm an educator, a writer, a poet, a painter. I support enormous number of causes. I pay for 300 children. And I got Ai Weiwei.
All of them yours.
All of them
I'm
mine.
kidding.
And I even got Ai Weiwei to take on 100. So that's 400. But, you know, this is, of course, I'm diametrically opposed to Trump on every single issue,
Of course. No, I mean, I know I know where you are politically.
But everything passes. You know, all the lies, all the misinformation, all the bad journalism, all passes. What remains, of course, is I do think that serious art criticism will survive.
Oh, really? That's nice. That's generous. Thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience? Yes. Do you want to say your name before you ask the question?
My name is Robert Petrick.
Okay.
Oh, and I was just like wondering if you could say one thing that was, I'm a painter also, one thing that in your career or life that resulted in you being noticed and becoming, you know, who you are, and is there any one particular thing?
Yeah, I would say that well, of course, it's all a question of people. You can't make yourself famous. It's other people do it. I mean, in a sense, you know, you're like a flower. You know, you have to make yourself attractive.
To all the bees.
To all the bees. And in fact, when I'm teaching, I ask the students, do you want to be a flower or a bee? If you want to be, leave.
Really?
If you want to be a bee, leave. Oh. So they'll say, no, I want to be a flower. So I would say that my friendship with Harvey Quaitman is very profound for me. You know, he was a painter who lived on the Bowery. He was a very, very dear friend of mine.
Quaitman?
Quaitman. He has a fairly famous daughter called Rebecca. And Harvey was in the same generation as Bryce Martin, Robert Mangold, and so forth, Dorothea, and generation above me. And it was Harvey that persuaded David McKee to show my work. And that unlocked something because people made a connection between the way I painted and the way Guston painted, which is very, maybe working class would be a way of describing it. There wasn't so much finesse to it. You know, I paint quite simple or direct, let's say. I know you don't like me saying it's simple.
I just called your paintings Mandarin. Like you're ruining it all.
Yeah. But, you know, I paint very direct and without too much artifice. Anyway, Harvey persuaded David McKee to come to my studio, and David McKee didn't want to. I've tried the same with friends of mine with various degrees of failure, I have to say. And it's not that easy to do it for somebody else. It's not that easy to get a gallerist to take somebody that you suggest. I found it very difficult. But anyway, Harvey was extremely persistent, and he got David McKee and Renee to come, and they took me into their gallery, and my career exploded.
It's true.
Immediately.
What you're saying, I think, because we all can't have Harvey Quaitman in our lives, especially since he's no longer alive, is that it's important to have friends when you're an artist, to be part of some kind of community that you really create yourself.
Oh yeah, I think without your friends and without long-term friendships and love and loyalty, you're lost.
It's good to make your own community, because a lot of people think there's one cool community to be in, and there's no real community in the art world. It's just made up of people and friends and their supporters, and you have to create really your own scene as an artist, I think. I think every artist has to create his or her own scene, a group of people who you like and who you can invite for dinner and talk to. Yes?
I was just saying, like, I've been painting for 40 years, over 30 years, and, like, is it okay to say, okay, you're not famous after painting all this time, should you continue to paint? I still paint anyway, and I'm going to continue to paint, but I don't know.
That's a really profound question, and I think it has to do with, Sean should answer that, but I was going to say your reasons for painting. If you love to paint, of course you should continue painting, and one never knows anyway which way the wind will blow.
Yeah, it's well, it's a painful question. Mm-hmm. It touches me. But it goes back, I think, to what Donald Cuthbert said to me, that the effort is its own reward. And there's something in that, something very profound in that. And one cannot control how it's going to go. I've got a cousin who writes in the style of Samuel Beckett. And he has literally boxes of manuscripts. And I've had access to very famous people like Seamus Heaney, who is a very dear friend of mine, and an incredible, approachable guy. And I showed him the writing, and he looked at it very seriously, and he wrote back to me seriously regarding it. But of course, he couldn't help him, and he mentioned a couple of publishers. I sent them to these publishers, and they just came back. And there he is, sitting in his mum's house, writing these books.
Okay, but there are different levels also at which you can publish or exhibit. Like maybe if you can't get into a gallery in Chelsea, show locally at a school in wherever you're living, or try to get in somewhere. There's always somewhere where you can publish or exhibit.
Yeah, I believe that.
Isn't that true? It may not be the top place, but the main thing...
I believe that, yeah.
The main thing is to just keep working and try to find supporters, I would say. Any other questions? Robert, do you have any questions today? You always have a question. You see, now we're going to start calling on people. It is like school, isn't it, Sean?
Sean, I think about maybe 8 or 10 years ago, I was asking you about painting on aluminum, and I think your comment to me at the time was something to the effect, well, when I have my first exhibition in Africa, I want to make sure that the canvas doesn't fall apart. And I think what you meant by that is the humidity and so forth. Anyway, it was something between us, and I don't remember it very accurately. But the question that I have is, did it change your painting when you turned to aluminum as opposed to canvas?
Yeah, it did. I actually said the Congo, because I associate the Congo with humidity.
Right.
Which moves canvas around.
That's right.
And I don't like that when the canvas moves around. These, by the way, are painted on canvas. So I haven't abandoned it, but I tend to paint on metal because I do find it so interesting to paint emotionally or poetically on such a heartless material. I find that counterpoint very interesting, and I've always had counterpoint in my work. You know, the romance of the paintings of the 80s was juxtaposed against a kind of sculptural brutality that I thought echoed the way that the city was slapped together. And I tend to make that happen quite a lot in my work. So because I don't want to submit to the romance of abstract painting, or I don't want to make them, as we spoke about earlier, sublime. I don't want to fall into that tradition. And I think that the working class industrial material, which of course has a relationship with arte povera and minimalism, is in me. That dialectic is in me from my days of conceptual painting, hardcore black and white painting that I was involved in the 70s, in downtown Tribeca in the good old days when we didn't have any money and we died young.
I remember.
It was lovely, yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
I wanted to ask you about your exhibition in Venice, and if you can talk about what you're showing there and where the idea comes from.
Did you see it already?
No, next week, I hope.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sean has an installation now. It's a monastery?
Yeah, it's a famous monastery, Palladio. It was a great opportunity. It was organized by a friend of mine who's a Spanish art critic. And I was offered this church, where it's a cathedral by Palladio. And has a fantastic dome when you enter. And that is really the thing that you have to deal with. And people have made interesting stabs at it in the past. You know, Anish made an ascending spiral of smoke, which obviously has a relationship to a piece by Joseph Beuys, which was an ascending column of steam, very poetic, coming out of a brick wall, very beautiful indeed. I thought that was an interesting reconfiguration of an idea. And I liked Pistoletto's mirrors last time. I thought that was very interesting, dealing with the idea of infinity and spirituality. But it's something you have to deal with. So I decided to make one of these stacks. And then I wanted to make it out of material that was very submissive to the building. So the material was soft. And my first idea was to cover the frames with old ecclesiastical robes, but I couldn't get enough together fast enough. I thought it'd be very interesting that they would shimmer and they'd look a little bit ragged. But obviously dealing with the idea of ascendance, but a kind of ragged ascendance. And I came up with what I think is a wonderful title, Opulent Ascension. Because you know that Catholicism is a very opulent religion, like Hinduism is very opulent, but it's still concerned with spirituality, which I don't have a problem with. And I covered them with felt, colored felt, And this had advantages that I didn't even think about. I can't say I designed all this. The felt took to itself all the light in the church because it's not woven, it's pressed. It's a pressed material. And the surface is so interesting. It looks as if it's lit, but it's not. Plus, we opened it up, so I made a door.
All right.
All right.
So we could see those mice.
All right, yeah. And then you can go in it. And when you go in it, it takes all the sound out of the air. It eats the light and it eats the sound. It's so interesting. I can't take credit for all this. I mean, this happened. Also, when you look up, there's this, it's centered underneath the dome. So the idea is you stand and you can see this little cupola that's letting light in at the top, which makes inside the sculpture a perfect star.
Cool.
It's so incredible.
And you
Again, I couldn't have predicted that.
And you also did 2 windows, I read, that will stay there?
Yeah, that was a last minute thing. I looked at it and I just thought it would be so great if I put these stained glass windows in, these last 2 windows. Because I put them in Santa Cecilia, which I did. It's a monastery on Montserrat. And also I put them in the glass house in Villa Panza. So every other window was like a beautiful little watercolor that allowed you to look through a painting as you looked out, and then the light comes in and colors all the leaves of the plants. Another effect I couldn't have predicted. So I had the idea, it was running through my head about stained glass, because I love stained glass. I think it's an incredible transparent painting. You're in and you're out at the same time. So I ended up with that.
Okay.
And then there was a long gallery where I put a load of landline paintings, which I thought echoed the water outside. And then there was a triptych of 3 of those, which looks like a little Madonna triptych. It's the same painting, painted 3 times, or the same photograph, same iPhone photograph. Because when I paint these paintings, I have an iPhone photo, and I just hold it in my left hand and paint a picture with my right hand. Because since I used to be a figurative painter, I can draw them out. Takes 5 minutes. And
You spent more than 5 minutes drawing the figure.
no, I have it on
You don't?
film. Takes 5 minutes.
Think what you could do in 10 minutes.
2 of them. So, no, the reason I found out it was 5 minutes by accident, because on my iPhone I have a 5-minute lock, and I drew it out,
Yeah,
and I stepped back and the iPhone locked.
yeah. You
So
have to
it
work
took-
quickly before the
took-
photograph disappears.
No, I can open it up. I wasn't. But I don't see any point in messing around, so I do it quick.
Yeah. Well, we're all very impressed, and we will try our own 5-minute drawings when we get home tonight. So thank you, everybody, for coming and for being such an attentive audience. And thank you, Sean, for your beautiful show.